There is a major crisis facing the Native American community in Minnesota. Many members of the population, much like the rest of the United States, are malnourished and facing diseases such as diabetes. It was not always this way, though. Back before the colonization of North America, Native Americans ate a healthy, balanced diet. They gathered fruit, vegetables, and grains while also hunting game and fish.
A lot of the reservations where people would have access to food, it would either be like fast food or like government, dispersed food. So the diet isn't as awesome as it should be.
I believe that in the Native American community that food science and nutrition is a very important topic. We have so many of our people who are diabetic. In many communities, more than 50% of the members are diabetic.
My mother grew up a single mother for most of my life, and we got government rations from like the highly processed food, a lot of salt and sugars, and which leads to a lot of diabetes and stuff now in today's Indian country.
According to Sue McLaughlin from the American Diabetes Association, American Indians and Alaska Natives now have the highest diabetes prevalence rates of all racial and ethnic groups in the United States. More than 16% of the members of this population have been diagnosed, compared to the 8.7% of non-Hispanic whites.
I think a lot of this can be traced back to historically to the time of the creation of the reservations. Prior to 1900, diabetes was unheard of in the Native American community, and today it's really prevalent, and some people believe that it has to do with not only the food sources, but the way the food sources were gathered.
According to Sean Sherman, an independent chef and author who resides in Minneapolis, in his book, The Sioux Chef's Indigenous Kitchen, food weaves people together, connects families through generations, and is a life force of identity and social structure.
Nowadays, you'll find a lot of people reclaiming, so they call that food sovereignty, right? Where they're taking back more of those traditional ways of eating and trying to go more organic. So you'll find a lot more community gardens on reservations where they're reteaching, because back where the relocation, they were not allowed to practice their traditional ways of doing things. A lot of that was lost through the generations, and it was probably like 2 or 3 generations ago, right? So a lot what you'll find now is, like I said, the community gardens, where that has become more of a staple. So in Indian country, or if you go around Native communities, you'll find a lot of feasts happening. So a lot of families will come together and make sure that the community is being fed. So that could also be like a huge resource for a lot of dietary. Again, you'll find a lot of the more traditional foods, like there will always be meat, always be some kind of fish, or wild rice is huge, especially in Minnesota.
Although I'm not an expert in the nutrition, but from what I hear from the experts, that the monomen, or wild rice as it's commonly known as, is a very healthy food. It has a lot of the nutrition that white rice does not have. It's very filling, so you get filled up quickly. And many people report better control of their blood sugar levels, of their weight, when they eat monomen 3, 4, or 5 times a week, as compared to people who do not eat the wild rice or the monomen on a very regular basis.
Wild rice, again, that is really actually sacred food to the Ojibwe people. So that was like the main staple of our diet. It's actually not a rice, it's like a grass, where it's helped maintain health of like the indigenous people of this area, and is really one of the best probably sources of like a grain type for indigenous people.
So although the gathering of the monomen has always been sort of in a respectful way and a sustainable way, that many more of our community members are becoming too dependent upon the income. And as a result, in recent times, they have been a little bit more aggressive in harvesting. They go out and harvest a little bit sooner. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is that in the traditional way of ricing, the grains fall back into the water and to reproduce for the next year. And what's happening is that a lot of the green grains are now falling into the water that are not ripe and not ready, mature enough to grow new plants. And so we're getting a lot less.
In conclusion, the crisis of nutrition facing the Native American community is not a lost cause. The solution would be to begin to go back to a traditional native diet, especially consuming more wild rice. With a more natural diet, the community could return to the health of the previous generations.